It's our Mohawk movie review with Dana Han-Klein. Now, she has our favorite Mohawk of all time, 10 years in the making. And so we rate our movies 0 for the worst, 5 for the best. And Dana, what do you have for us today?
So today I have Doctor Strange. This is the umpteenth movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I was very excited because it's an origin story, which we haven't really had in a while. It's been sort of a series of sequels. So I'm a comic book reader, and so I sort of knew what to expect in terms of the sort of psychedelic and metaphysical elements of Doctor Strange. But to an outsider, you know, it's to explain it might be sort of like The Matrix meets Inception meets a typical superhero plot line.
Cool.
It's very trippy. It's different from Marvel movies we've seen recently. In terms of, like, he's not a mutant. He wasn't imbued with powers in an accident. He didn't build a super suit. He just sort of taps into this, like, mystic energy. So Benedict Cumberbatch, who I absolutely love, is Dr. Stephen Strange, who's a top-notch sort of arrogant neurosurgeon who gets in an accident and has his hands destroyed. And he eventually finds himself in Nepal and encounters a consortium of sorcerers, which is, again, as I said, this movie gets weird.
Yeah.
They are led by Tilda Swinton as the Ancient, and I have to say I would be remiss if I didn't flag that in the comics, this character is like a person of Asian descent. They're from the Himalayas, and I don't really appreciate when Hollywood whitewashes things. So they wrote it off as saying, like, oh, well, she's Celtic. It's like a one-liner in the movie, and this sort of controversy was floating about before the film came out. So I'm just going to flag, I think they could have done something different with it. But aside from that, Tilda Swinton's a great actress, and she does a great job. She's like the Yoda of the film. Chiwetel Ejiofor and Benedict Wong are fellow sorcerers, and there are some really fun scenes between, like, Benedict Cumberbatch and them sort of trying to figure out, you know, what are his powers, what's this sort of universe he's now living in. And then the opposite of that is Rachel McAdams plays fellow Dr. Christine Palmer, and she's clearly supposed to be like the emotional core of it, but it felt very cookie cutter. Like, she's a great actress as well. This whole cast is great. It's just sort of superhero movies are a little limiting because you're not really here to see like deep emotion. If you can get that, it's great, but that's not really, I feel like, who they're targeting. As with many Marvel movies, the villain is a little bit generic. What I really liked about Civil War, which we talked about earlier this year, was it was a conflict that stemmed internally between the Avengers, and it's sort of instead of there being a throwaway antagonist, it's like a difference of morals where there's merit to both sides, and they present both sides with characters you love. I feel like they sort of tried to like sell the other side. It felt a little Star Warsian, like, come to the dark side, but we have a reason for having a dark side. But again, I think it fell a little bit short. One thing I did appreciate is, like, you didn't have to be super well-versed in the Marvel Universe to know what's going on. There are, like, of course, references to the other things happening in these movies, but it's, again, because it's an origin story, you aren't really obligated to know what else is going on. I'm not going to go into too much more because I actually really want people to see it. I loved it, and my friend who is not a superhero junkie also enjoyed it, so I'm going to give it 4.3 Mohawks.
Whoa.
Wow. Is that your highest rating yet? I think it is.
I've given a couple 5s, but like I really enjoyed it, and I know I'm the target audience, like superhero fans. But I gotta say, like, it was really enjoyable. Lots of laughs, lots of action. If you're cool with trippy action, and I will say, stay to like the very end because Marvel's known for their like after credit scene. So the other movie I have this week is Trolls. So if you have younger kids who are a bit too young for Doctor Strange, which I think is rated PG-13, you can go see Trolls this weekend, which is the animated feature from DreamWorks. And it's based on those super ugly troll dolls of the 70s who admittedly have some pretty kick-ass hair. Visually, they went very different from it. It's like a rainbow threw up. Like, it's so colorful in parts. It's just like... The energy also in the first act in particular is like manic. And I was like a little, I don't want to say stressed out, but I was like, oh my God, I'm being bombarded. It's a musical. So it's cool. Justin Timberlake was, I think, the executive music producer, and that guy knows how to write and make catchy music and mixes. So it's a lot of like 70s, 80s, and then contemporary music, which was cool. The cast is all-star. It's Justin Timberlake, it's Anna Kendrick, it's James Corden, like Russell Brand, Zooey Deschanel, Gwen Stefani. It just like went on and on and on. And of course, most of them do their own singing. I think they all did their own singing. So anyway, they created this whole mythology around the trolls since one didn't exist before, because they were these, I think there was like a backstory of like the troll dolls themselves and how the toy creator made them, but really, who knows the mythology of the trolls? So they had a sort of a blank canvas to play with. And they created these creatures called the Bergens who eat trolls once a year for happiness. And I was like, this is like a weird bacchanalian ritual. I feel like it's a little adult and like kids wouldn't necessarily get it, or it's setting a weird tone. But basically what happens is the trolls escape and they live peacefully for a while. And of course something happens and they're found. I don't think I'm really spoiling anything. The film is very kind of adventure-y after that, and I really appreciate it. After the first act, it calms down. So if you're a parent, like, I feel like your like heart rate will like slow down a little bit after that. And then it gets into some of the more fun scenes, which as like an adult I enjoyed, that had like humor. I think that was aimed more at an older audience, but I think kids will still appreciate, fart and glitter and, dead like physical humor jokes. And I think kids are definitely going to respond to like the design and the texture. Like shout out to the surfacing team because everything's super like fuzzy and you just kind of want to like touch everything on screen. And I think the humor is a little more geared at younger audiences, but there are also some heartfelt moments that I think as like an older adult. And I will maintain that I don't think you can leave the theater without having at least one of the songs stuck in my head. I've had them stuck in my head for like weeks.
Well, I got to say, what is your rating? What are you thinking about Trolls?
So overall, I feel like I know it's possible to have like a serious emotional core to an animated movie, so I judge it by the same standards I would judge a live action movie. So I'm only going to give it a 3.6. And I know the film wasn't aimed at me, but I feel like there could have just been a little bit more to it. And I think the unevenness of the first act just being like beat you over the head, like happy, was a little rough. But you leave the theater feeling like, okay, a little warm fuzzies. But I think if you have kids, like I'd give it a higher rating for that because you aren't going to want to scratch your eyeballs out leaving the theater. And I think that's a good thing.
It is, absolutely. And Trolls were so ugly, those dolls. I'm sorry.
So ugly. Like, go look up what an actual troll doll looks like, and then go look up what these trolls look like, and it's like, all right, I kind of appreciate the direction they went.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. So people can take their kids this weekend to see that movie. Dana, thank you so much for checking in with us. We'll be back with you next Friday, and this has been the Mohawk Movie Review, mornings on KFOG.